This entire conversation right now is incredibly painful. I didn't know it was going to go in this direction. I applaud Kendrick Perkins for what he said on a very personal level because he made sure to repeatedly remind KD that he is loved by Kendrick Perkins, that his family still loves KD, his children, his wife, etc. And I think that's incredibly important to peel from this conversation because here's the reality. KD is a guy worthy of our love, of our respect, and of our admiration in most situations, as well as is the case with Kendrick Perkins. And coming from my vantage point, particularly any person of African-American descent that's fighting on behalf of our community, on many, many occasions, I have been on the record stating there is more than one way to skin a cat. And Kendrick Perkins, welcome to the party, my brother, because I've been called that name on many, many occasions. And I'd like to go about the business of re-educating a whole bunch of black folks out there about exactly what a sellout is. A sellout is a very disparaging label handed down to a black person who is believed to be operating against the best interests of his own community as a whole. And so when people say this kind of stuff, a lot of times I'm looking at them like, what the hell are you talking about? Do you even know what it means? Have you attached any level of intellect to that notion? And that's what I would challenge KD on this particular instance with when it's coming to the defense of Kyrie Irving. I did not hear anybody talk about Kyrie Irving, the man. I did not hear you say anything about Kyrie Irving, the man. I did not hear you say anything about Kyrie Irving's past transgressions or anything like that. I did not hear you personalize it. What I heard you say about Kyrie Irving is that what you're proposing is counterproductive to the bottom line of what the Players Association and the NBA as a whole is trying to make happen, because we've got to take abundance of things into consideration. Over the last couple of weeks, Kendrick, I've mentioned on numerous occasions that I don't know of any black movement that has not involved black empowerment or that has not been the end game. I don't care whether it's Medgar Evers, I don't care whether it's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, or beyond, or before, Frederick Douglass, all of these guys. It's always been about black empowerment. So if you are an NBA player making the exorbitant amount of dollars that you make with the cachet that you have available to you, the forum and the platform that is provided to you, for you to be talking about there not being games, not only is compromising your future salary because of the potential reopening of CBA talks and all of that other stuff, it's also compromising the conspicuous platform that you have available to you. So it didn't make any sense. To me, that's what you were saying about Kyrie Irving. And so Kevin Durant, this is not the first time that he's come to the defense of one of his teammates. He came to the defense of Russell Westbrook years ago when y'all were both in OKC. You know that. You were tight with him as a brother for a reason, because we all know he's a good brother. It's just that sometimes KD is in his zest to protect one of his teammates, speaks up, and occasionally speaks out of turn. And I think this was one of those situations. But in the end, here's what it comes down to. We all in this together. Like you said, KP, we all in this together. We understand what's going on. We understand the time that we're living in. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a moment. It's a time. It's not a moment where it's here and it's gone a moment. No, this is a different day and it's a different time. And we need to take all hands on deck and attach ourselves to every level of intelligence, every outlet imaginable or whatever. We are on the air right now talking about Juneteenth, for crying out loud. We understand that was Texas, that was the last free, that the federal laws came down, Emancipation Proclamation, just 2 years earlier, freeing slaves on a federal level. And Texas was the last state to really adopt it because of, whatever reasons that you want to point to. And as a result of that, they were the last to the party. But basically, that's when people were finally free, African Americans in this country, and not labeled slaves, supposedly, until Jim Crow laws kicked in, which is a different subject. In the end, what it comes down to is that this is an incredibly important day in our nation's history, particularly as it pertains to African Americans. And we are not going to be about the business of denigrating one another or going at each other. But that doesn't mean we can't be critical of positions people take. It is one thing to talk about who you are. It's another thing to talk about what you did in a particular situation. And when you talked about Kyrie Irving, just because you disagreed with his position, as I disagreed with his position, does not mean we have a problem with Kyrie Irving, the person. It means on this particular issue pertaining to the NBA reopening, we disagree with him there. We have facts. If you have an argument counter to that, make the argument, KD or anybody else, as opposed to engaging in name calling and denigrating people and all of that stuff. That ain't KD. I'm not casting aspersions on KD. He's a good brother, all right? As most NBA players are, in my experience. But that doesn't mean that they're right all the time. And just because you say somebody is wrong does not mean that you're saying they're a bad person, they're despicable, and all of this other stuff. People need to get a little bit more alligator skin, stop being so damn sensitive, and let's go about the business of handling our business from a multitude of avenues instead of feeling like everybody's got to march down the same path in order to get things done.
Absolutely, Stephen A. And let me add this, right? So Wilson Chandler, my brother, lashed out at me on Twitter, right? And I DM'd him, and he ended up calling me. And me and him talked it out like men. He understood where I was coming from, and I understood where he was coming from. And the only part that he made, and right now, and I'm going to issue an apology to Kyrie Irving for making the statement on the Get Up about saying the bird statement and about putting his brain in the bird and they'll fly backwards. Wilson, he hit me on that and said that was the only problem he had. So to Kyrie, I apologize for making that statement about you, my brother. Last night, Dwight Howard, we had an hour-and-a-half conversation on the phone, and we talked it out. I understand where he's coming from, and he understands where I'm coming from. At the end of the day, we all fighting the same fight. We just got to come together and figure out a solution, a wise, strategic solution to the problem, and not be divided, period.